give you a bit of history, quick history around Bondi, and give you an acknowledgement of country. Not far from here, at the back of the golf course, there's Aboriginal rock carvings that have been probably dated maybe 8 to 10,000 years old. So they're relatively recent. We're told that maybe 15,000 years ago, when the water was locked up in polar ice caps, that the shoreline was a lot further out, there was less seawater around, so Bondi Beach was basically inland from a coastline that was maybe another 20 k's further out. And because there's been recorded occupation of this country by Aboriginal people, under the water out from Bondi Beach, there's probably a lot of more rock carvings and engravings that are evidence of people being here at least 50,000 years ago. I know there was a recent archaeological site in Parramatta, in the business district, right in the centre of Parramatta buildings. They did an archaeological site assessment and they found evidence of Aboriginal occupation that went back in that area at least 30,000 years. Between the rock engravings at the golf course, if you go to Bed and Buckler, which is the north side of Bondi Bay, there's a rock engraving of a turtle there. And if you walk around and you go into the other side of the headland, you go to a place called Mackenzie's Bay, Mackenzie's Headland. There's another rock engraving there of whales and fishes. The ones up in the golf course are, I think, features even a seal, and there's also a ceremonial figure there. And there is evidence in the local history of the rock engravings up at the golf course being used as part of ceremony, so robbery or ceremony, up until maybe the 1850s, 1880s. Around about the same time, on Bondi Beach, after a big storm washed away a bit of sand, there was Aboriginal remains found there, and at least some part of that remains, an Aboriginal skull, was taken by the O'Brien family. They have the estate around here. They donated it to the Australian Museum. That was reburied with a lot of other Aboriginal remains from around this area, maybe about 2 or 3 years ago, by the Larpurus Local Aboriginal Land Council. So there's a strong connection to country here in past times. You all know probably what Bondi is now in present times. Across this laneway, this building right out that window, the penthouse up the top was in the paper about 2 weeks ago. It's going for 400 square metres for a modest $9 million. So that's the property price just across the laneway on the penthouse. But also there's been a recent person who's lived with other people around this area. They still live in the caves in the sandstone rocks. There was actually a Save the Caveman website, a guy who was living here, and he had the same view for free. He was living in a cave on the other side of the bay. So in Bondi you have the extremes of housing. You've got caves that were probably used by Aboriginal people at least 15,000 years ago, and you have modern construction just across this laneway being used by people now who are prepared to pay $9 million for 400 square metres in a penthouse. So those are the extremes, and it's fitting that this place, as Chapel by the Sea and the community hub that it has become, with these sorts of information nights and the trust meetings happening here and other environmental sustainability type meetings, community gardens, and all those things being talked about in this setting, it's fitting that this should be a place for the opening night to launch the Waratah Community Land Trust. Please join me in acknowledging the traditional ancestors of the country we meet on, our elders past and present, and in that I include the elders in all our community, those people who we look to for times, in hard times, for guidance and some kind of advice about the best track to take next. Please join me in acknowledging them, acknowledging the spiritual ancestors of this country, our elders past and present. With that, I'll give you an acknowledgement of country and welcome to Waratah Community Land Trust.